Yeah, our next speaker is Barbara Galani. Please. She is head of the Communication and Partnerships Department at the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA. Ms. Galani has extensive experience of communicating complex issues in the areas of food safety and research, but also in managing food scares and in developing training courses on risk communication. Before joining EFSA, she worked at the UK Food and Drink Federation, at the British Retail Consortium, at the European Consumers Bureau, and at the UK Food Standards Agency. Her time at the FCA also included a BA Media Fellowship on Science Communication at the Daily Telegraph. Please welcome Barbara Galani.
Well, thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here. And it's such a pleasure to start an event about one substance, one assessment with communications. Sometimes the communications is in the margins, it's a breakout session. But no, starting an event with communications really focuses minds on how important it is not just to do the science, but to communicate and to engage. And we've heard a lot of questions already that really show the interest in what is the science of communications. How much research we still need to conduct to understand whether it's better to communicate openly about uncertainties or to communicate transparently about uncertainty, which is not the same thing. And when we talk about one substance, one assessment, one risk, we tend to think that there are a lot of messages, sometimes contrasting messages, sometimes conflicting messages about the same risk. And we want to come to having, as a community of communicators, not just in Europe but globally, a common approach. We will always have different messages, use different channels, but we want an approach that brings us together. And the way we try and do it in this new approach to risk communications is to put our audiences first and to better understand the audiences. There was a question from RIVM about values. And the research and the social science that we can do because of the new methodologies that are now much more accessible, also in terms of costs, we can really get under the skin of what drives decisions about what to read, what not to read, what to believe, what not to believe, what to do, what not to do. So it's a big journey, it's complex, it involves people, it involves groups of people, it involves individuals, but research is the way in to start understanding how to better structure our communications and then how to deliver communication that is helpful. How we do this, and very much inspired by the BFR monitor. In BFR you started many years ago and you got continuous trends that you can look at about changes in attitudes and perceptions. Also inspired by work done in the UK with surveys about perceptions about food and in many other countries. We developed this vision of really doing this at European level together. We got a Eurobarometer methodology that is developed by the Commission, and we had been using it in the past, but now that, as I said, these tools are more affordable, we're really collecting information that we prepare and digest into country spreadsheets to give countries that haven't got this journey on social sciences already started the basis to build on. And what we want to do is, with the countries that are already very well developed, to have a repository of methodologies, a repository of data, so that we can collate information from our social science research that is comparable and that enlarges our sort of potential mining of information to develop communications. We use this research, the Eurobarometer in particular, for our strategic decisions about topics to communicate about and ways to communicate about these topics. So we sort of triangulate what we know about consumer interest and perceptions with the scientific work that we do and the plan of our opinions for the year to come, together with the priorities of the European Commission, Parliament and Council. And then we make decisions about where to put our efforts in terms of communications. But we also use research for targeted purposes. The example here is the Stop African Swine Fever campaign. And the decision there is what is the cohort, what is the group that is going to be most responsive to which messages. So is it more important to minimize the spread of African swine fever, to communicate to vets, to farmers, to hunters, to people traveling, and we saw the bacteria traveling from one country to another. So we do research because we can't do everything at once, otherwise we dilute our messages. And we moved away big time from communicating to everybody at the same time in the same way. So strategic research, targeted research, used for slightly different purposes. Another tool that has really come to provide us important assistance is the automatic sort of translation. So it's artificial intelligence applications to the field of translations. In Europe, with all the official languages that are spoken, we can't really expect to engage on day-to-day messages just in English, in French, or in German, or in Italian, which was the case in EFSA, where our sort of working languages were for. We extended to Spanish with great effort 2 years ago and great expense. In the space of 2 years, we're now able to use neural translation systems to provide translations in 10 languages. And by the end of the year, we will cover all 24 European languages. This is how fast these technologies are advancing. And looking at the materials that Susan presented about BFR, you've already got a lot of materials in English, a lot of really useful materials in German. We should connect this content across member states, across EU agencies, across international organizations, to make sort of available this content that then is fit for different types of audiences. So, with the transparency regulation, which gave the European Food Safety Authority a bigger mandate in terms of communications direct to citizens, we decided to also explore the plain language summaries route. Our main tool for communication is the EFSA journal. It's a journal of scientists for scientists. And inspired by the European Medicines Agency, EMA, we looked at plain language summaries for our opinions. And the reason for sort of translating complex scientific technical opinions into a one-pager or 2 pages, sometimes 5 pages, and I'm not very happy with my team when they come with a plain language summary of 5 or 6 pages. I just go a little bit mad. So let's say 1 page or 2 pages, even if you find longer ones on our website. It's not just for the general public, it's also for the scientific community and different groups of scientists that are so engrossed in their work that sometimes they use the jargon in slightly different ways. So we're really exploring this, and by the end of the pilot we will have 100 plain language summaries on opinions across our portfolio. And we're doing focus group research and surveys to understand how these summaries are used, if they're considered useful, how to improve them. And then we will make a go, no-go decision on whether to adopt them for all opinions or for certain parts of our publications. Now, coming to social media. This is probably one of the most recent initiatives that I'm particularly proud of. We started in May this year, and this is a One Health Instagram account, together with the European Medicines Agency, the European Chemicals Agency, the European Centre for Disease Control, the European Environment Agency, and EFSA. You won't see many logos here of the agencies, but what you will see messages about how the European agencies are working to protect consumers' health. So the strapline is news, information, and faces, very important, from the EU agencies working to safeguard health and our planet. So it's really, we've established an editorial board that meets weekly. There are about 2 posts per agency per week, and the editorial board identifies topics where the agencies can communicate together. And we decide together on the tone, on the style. We develop templates that make it easier for using visuals in Adobe. And we have basically given up the EFSA Instagram account, turned it into the One Health with the agencies, and now is the next step in making it flourish and making it grow. But this is what we can do now. It would have been unthinkable just 3 years ago to do something like this without having people to meet and without having to pay 5 times for the cost of a host, in site, etc., etc. So we try and develop content that speaks to the audiences. We've seen it with the examples, really, really nice examples from BFR, using of animations, using of people, faces, interviews, showing videos of the labs. So there is a whole spectrum of things that we're already trying in different settings. And it's really important that we make use of opportunities like this one, like the Communication Expert Network, the International Liaison Group on Risk Communication, the HCIN Group of Communicators in Agencies, really to exchange our experiences. So we don't all repeat the same mistakes, but we make different ones, and then we add up the knowledge. And here, what we're learning from is really to put faces to the work that we do, how important this is. And you will hear more about the Science Cooks video from Sarah, that will have a presentation later today. So one other way to join the dots and to bring communicators in the area of risk assessment in food, but not only food, is a campaign that we can do because of the Transparency Regulation funding. And here again, we are experimenting, we're trying, we're testing, and what works, we repeat the following year or the following 6 months. What doesn't work, we write about and discard. We used an Instagram Reel contest about fridges. It was quite a fun one to do. We used some of the relationships, so we built some relationships with influencers, and we engaged general sort of users of Instagram. Open your fridge, take a picture, see what it looks like, then read the tips on how to organize your fridge to ensure the best sort of safety, and then take a picture of how your fridge looks like after. We had quite a lot of engagement. It was fun to do, and it just gave us an insight on how we can use these competitions. And one of the learnings was that you need to have good prizes to attract people. I think maybe it was obvious, but you see, the little things that we learn by doing. The Walk the Talk, this is one of our scientists. This is again putting a face to the scientific work. This, can you eat it if you can't pronounce it? Massive trend on Instagram and other social media about the fact that if it's not natural, if you can't pronounce it, then it shouldn't be in your food. So we go with E300, vitamin C. E for Europe, 300 is just the number in the list. And so we try and really pick up by listening what is trending, and then a few months down the line, because we're not that fast yet, we can respond. African swine fever campaign, I've already talked about targeted research to tailor our messages and to develop them. Really, really big problem worldwide, and looking at minimizing the spread of the disease. And we've been running with this for 4 years. It's been the first big campaign that we've done at European level. And we started with posters, TV broadcast and radio broadcast, which we're still doing because television and radio are still very much used by a large chunk of the European population to get information. What we did this year, based on the previous 3 years, we did a lot more work on farm. So we developed stickers and posters that are placed at specific points on the farm, at the entry point, at the point where the feed is unloaded from the trucks, at the point where the farmers come in and out of their abodes. And so really doing, again, social research about what is the behavior on farm, and what are the points where the spread is most likely, and what are the messages. This pig's sick, act quick is my favorite, where we can really communicate directly. Again, in this sort of journey of experimentation on social media of different formats, we used the One Conference, which was our sort of celebration with scientists about EFSA's 20th anniversary, because we are as old as BFR, at an event in Brussels. We won a Forbes award for public administration for this, for pulling together 5 envy agencies and developing a branding that we used on buildings, in social media activities on site, with a color scheme, with a format that was quite engaging. And you see there is a journey inside the venue that we replicated for the audience that was joining remotely. And this was, again, something that is giving us a lot of learnings for future projects. And now we come to my dream, and colleagues who work closely to me know exactly what I'm going to say. It's about a coordinated communication function in member states that can have, as part of their job description, working together for messages that can resonate in a way broader than their own countries. And I said we got the tool of automatic translations, we got the social media that are much more affordable. And the idea is, thanks to the transparency regulation, to reinvest some of the European Food Safety Authority's budget to support and to put hands on the ground to really think from a national perspective how best to communicate about messages that go across borders. And we do this already with the Communication Expert Network and the International Liaison Group on Risk Communication. We've got a colleague from Chile here who is part of this international group. So we meet as a community of communicators. But what we're lacking is the resources on the ground to translate some of our great ideas about joint projects into something that can then result in a reel, in a video, in a cartoon, in something that has not been tried before, and we want to do together. So we're really on this journey. It's the beginning. And I've got all the enthusiasm for making it happen, and there are a lot of colleagues who are supportive and trying to work out the practicalities, the governance. If we communicate across countries about topics, who is going to decide what we communicate about? Who is going to decide about the tone? And this example, which is only small, of the Instagram account with the other agencies, is a good training ground for something that can grow to a different scale. So we're working on the expected benefits, so it's easier for communication professionals in national authorities to sell the idea and to really explain why this is important. And we're also trying to address the fact that food is not just food safety in the minds of people who are interested in messages about food. When we talk about food, we have all these values and all these decisions that are not just about is this yogurt safe to eat or has it gone off? No, is this product sustainable? What is the sustainability and the security aspect linked to the ingredients that go in what I'm going to eat and to choose to put in my fridge? And there are a lot of different ministries, different agencies in countries and in Europe that deal with different aspects of food safety and food choices more broadly. And we need to connect this generation of content because we can't really expect to engage audiences if one agency talks about food safety, another one talks about the chemical safety in the environment, another one talks about veterinary medicines for animals that are used to produce food, and another one, and so on and so forth. So same is true in member states, so we want to really help these connections. And we're also dreaming of a community that gets training together. And this is also going to help enormously in managing crisis communications, because if you have a solid community working together on a day-to-day basis, producing content at peacetime, this community is really going to spring into action when a crisis happens and when communications need to be done much more quickly. There is this trust, there are these channels, and there is this basis that is going to help us protect consumers in case of a food incident much better, much faster. I'll stop here. I think I gave you a sort of feel for where we're trying to go together. And I'm looking forward to sort of continuing to exchange views and address questions during the day. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for this wonderful talk.